everybody. So today is Monday. That means it's time for family movie night. And today I have kind of an interesting selection for a family movie night. I have a movie that I don't really love that much. And usually I pick movies that I really like for a family movie night. But this one, I think it's admirable and I think it's worth seeing, so it's worth recommending, but it didn't really 100% work for me. Kind of similar to my Independence Day review. I like it just enough to say it's worth a watch. We're going to talk about this year's release of The Little Prince, and this is going to be available on Netflix, I think August 5th, and so it should be available this week, and I think it is one that should have had a theatrical debut. I don't think that, certainly if movies like Angry Birds movie and Ice Age 5 can get theatrical debuts, then a movie like The Little Prince should be able to get a theatrical release, which is so bizarre. What Paramount did, decide not to release it the week before its release. It was very weird. But Netflix ended up picking up, they ended up releasing it, and so now you all have a chance to see it. And it's very interesting, this movie, because people that have read the book is written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Sorry, saying that totally wrong. But yeah, so people that have read the book, I've noticed, really love the first part of the movie, which is really just this little girl sitting down and hearing stories from this old man. And that's this pilot. This pilot, voiced by Jeff Bridges, tells this little girl stories about this little prince who has this rose that he loves, and he cares for this rose, and the rose is voiced by Marion Cotillard, and the movie will make you think she has a really big part. It's a very, very small part. And yeah, I just, I don't mind a movie that has little to no plot. I mean, I love Richard Linklater movies and they don't have much of a plot, but I just wasn't that invested in these characters. It all seemed too kind of a little bit preachy and a little bit, I just wasn't invested in the stories. They were just kind of, I don't know, him telling about taking care of this rose and the little prince and I don't know, they just weren't that interesting of stories to me. And then the interesting thing is, so she is kept on this very tight leash by her mother, who's voiced by Rachel McAdams, and she has this like magnet board, and she has this list of all of these things that she has to do in order to get into this school, because the mother is a single mom and she has sacrificed so much to get her daughter into this school. They even move at the beginning of the movie so that she can get into the school. But the mother is really terrible about listening to her daughter, and she seemed a little bit unrealistic to me. She's just so obsessed with this checking everything off the list kind of thing and crafting the perfect life for her daughter, to the point where it became a little bit more of a caricature than a believable character to me. And so, yeah, they have these little sort of adventures, or they have these little moments where they're just telling all of these stories, and it's a lot of exposition. It's not a lot of showing what happens in the story. You do get these stop motion sections, which are beautiful, and they're very pretty, but I don't know, I just wasn't that invested in the characters. But people that have read the book typically are very invested in the characters, and they do really like that first part section much better than the second part section, which is interesting because I had the reverse experience. So once we get through that first hour of sort of talking about the little prince and sharing the stories, then she actually things start really going. So something happens in the story that makes the little girl very upset, and she doesn't like the way that the pilot has ended the story. And so she kind of storms off. She's very upset with him. She feels like she's wasted her summer. She could have done something else. Well, it turns out then something happens to the pilot that then she ends up having to go after him. So she gets to this asteroid, and she ends up in this sort of, it's like a reverse Neverland. And she finds the prince, and he's all grown up, and he's forgotten everything about his childhood and everything about the rose. And there's these businessmen who have kind of manipulated him and controlled him, and they have rounded up all of the stars, and they want to take all the light and joy out of the earth. It becomes sort of this dystopian kind of weird sort of look at this girl being confronted with sort of the kind of not as good a side of work and sort of being confronted with what her mother is trying to do. And that's, I guess, what I thought was interesting about it, is that her mother is trying to get her to sort of grow up, and her mother is trying to get her to stop listening to the stories of the pilot. Well, here you have her being confronted with a world without those stories and without those light. And so I thought that it was really, really interesting, and I thought that it was finally started to sort of tell like a real story that I was invested in. I started to get invested in the characters. I started to get emotional, where I just didn't feel that way for the first hour. So that second hour to me really, really worked and had something to say and had some heart and everything else. But it's interesting because the people that really love the book really like the first hour and feel like the second hour becomes sort of a conventional action story. But that wasn't the case for me. That wasn't the experience that I had. So this is just my review and my thought. I thought that it became more, it's not that the first part is very visually interesting because of that stop motion look, but the second part I thought became also very visually interesting with sort of this take on work and the businessman and the way that he used sort of black and white and lighting and shadow and everything. And I really thought it was cool. And I thought that the ending was emotional and it worked for me. And even sort of the resolution between the mother and the daughter kind of worked for me when I hadn't really gotten invested in that character at all. So I'm an anomaly on this one. Like I said, most people seem to like the beginning better. I like the ending better, but that's just it. That's what I thought. And yeah, overall, I thought it was a little bit boring and kind of inconsistent. So I didn't love it, but I did admire it, and I really liked that last half. And there are definitely things to enjoy, and I think it's definitely worth watching. And I think your kids will have some things to talk about with you after they watch it. Some things about life and death and work and scheduling and imagination and all of those things that are really important. And so I think it's a worthwhile film to watch as a family, even if I think it is pretty flawed. So there you go. That's my mixed review of The Little Prince. If you get to see it, it'll be on Netflix. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Yeah, did you like the first part or the second part better? Let me know. So thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!